welcome to Once Upon a Page. Today we are celebrating Heather Greer's latest release, and all four of us are so super stinking excited about this book because it has been a long time coming.
Mhm.
We started planning this in
2020?
2019,
19.
Oh, 2019.
2019,
Wow. Mhm.
Yeah.
and it is now 2023.
Hmm.
So, we've been working on this for a while, but her book, Window of Opportunity, is the first book in our quadrilogy, which is a
Mhm.
four-book collection, and we're calling it the Stained Glass Legacy series.
It didn't, all of those years were not us actually discussing the quadrilogy
No.
specifically. We just came back to it time and time again until
Yeah.
finally we went, if we're not going to stop talking about it, we should probably write it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And some of us wanted to do whole books instead of novellas. So
It's a whole story. I mean,
it
could you have
is.
had their
Yeah.
story in a novella? No, probably not.
Probably
So,
not.
No. No, it's really good. Heather's book is set in the 1920s, and it has gangsters,
Judge.
county judge and his daughter, and it has flappers.
And quotes, like
And
lots of phrases and sayings and stuff that are really cool.
yes,
So
yes, I loved that part. I loved it. With Uncle Patrick and his sayings of wisdom,
Very Irish.
yes.
his made up Irish proverbs. Is that what they are?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
Hmm.
some of them are, some of them are
Okay.
not. I mean,
Okay.
and honestly, that is truth. Like if he says they're an Irish saying, they are really an Irish saying, I found. If he says it's from him, then it's just, I made it up.
Well, you
Works.
did a good job of making them up to where they sound like legit Irish proverbs, if it makes you feel better.
That does, yeah.
Hmm.
Are you going to be reading a little piece for us today?
Yes, but please forgive me if I pronounce my character's name differently every time I say it. Her name is Evangeline. So if you're reading this, it is meant to be Evangeline. I always get stuck on it for some reason, even though I decided what her name should be, and call her Evangeline instead of Evangeline. But we're going to start with her name. So hopefully I get it right. Evangeline Grace Moore, get down here right now, young lady. Mother's screeched order bounced off the walls, causing Evangeline to pause halfway up the flight of stairs. Had the town's busybodies already passed down a report of Brendan walking her home? Surely they couldn't disseminate information that quickly. She had only been home for 30 minutes. It would do no good to pretend she had not caught Mother's order. Besides, it would be disrespectful. No matter what she felt about her parents' strict decrees and constant disappointment in her choices, God had shown her long ago that honor and respect of her parents was required. The fact that she was 19, soon to be 20, didn't change anything. She lived under their roof, and she would show them respect whether they realized it or not. The echo of each step as she made her way down the stairs sounded like the beating of a drum leading to an unfair trial and execution. She had taken that path many times. While the execution might only be figurative, it occurred in regular intervals after every perceived grievance. Evangeline took a deep breath and stepped around the corner into the parlor where her mother waited, her foot tapping impatiently on the polished wood floors. Yes, mother. Would you like to tell me what you were doing getting in a car filled with boys today after visiting a barber shop, no less? Evangeline sighed. You may want to tell your informant to have her eyes checked, mother. You will not be so disrespectful. It is highly unbecoming in a young lady. Nevertheless, whoever told you such a tale was wrong. I refused the ride, though doing so left me walking home in the rain. Whoever tattled must not have witnessed the whole scene. Her mother's chin went higher in the air, if that was possible. And the barber shop? Turn around and let me see your hair. I can't believe you would visit a place like that, much less adopt a hairstyle that suits only those of a certain low-class temperament and interest. Before Evangeline could comply, her mother gripped her arm, spinning her around. Evangeline winced. Waiting until her mother's free hand touched the bun she'd arranged that morning, Evangeline answered, I went in with Dot. She was the one who got her hair bobbed, not me. Besides, it was a barber shop, Mother. That's hardly like frequenting a speakeasy. Her mother inhaled sharply. What do you know of such things? I sensed Dorothy Taylor was no good for you. She's a horrid influence, and I was wrong in letting you befriend her. Your father is a judge, and as such, we have certain standards that must be maintained. Dorothy is simply not the sort to help your image in the community. Evangeline took advantage of her mother's position behind her to roll her eyes. Carefully schooling her features to a neutral position, she faced her mother. I'm not concerned with what people in the community think. I've done nothing wrong, and Dorothy has been my friend since elementary school. I agree she doesn't always make the wisest choices, but as you can see from my restraint today, I do not follow along like a mindless sheep. If something is wrong or questionable, I don't do it. Pursed lips and silent regard were Evangeline's reward for choosing not to get in the car. What would have happened if she had actually taken a ride? She repressed a shudder at the thought. It didn't matter. Mother would find something to complain about. May I be excused to my room now? Mother's lips flattened. I suppose I need to get supper started anyway. Evangeline left her standing in the parlor and made her way to the semi-sanctuary of her room. At least she had only had to face her mother over the car ride. It was hard to berate her for that one when she'd passed up the opportunity. Sharing an umbrella with Brendan Dunn for the last few blocks on her walk home would be another matter, rain or not. Brendan. He'd been so polite. It was this fact, not the way his tall, slim form made her feel protected as she walked beside him, that brought a tiny smile to her lips. Her reaction had nothing to do with his dark hair. No, those waves she had spied in the barber shop that couldn't be fully tamed didn't cause her grin. Neither did his sky-blue eyes, though they were framed more perfectly than the Georgia O'Keeffe paintings she had seen in the Chicago Museum her father had taken her to. No, those things didn't matter at all, and they were not what left her daydreaming about seeing him again.
I just love it. I love the whole thing.
I had a lot of fun writing it.
You did a really good job of weaving in the slang from the 20s, especially with Dot. Like she uses slang more than any of your other characters. But every time she would say something like the bee's knees and you know, the cat's pajamas and stuff, it just made me happy.
I actually had like poster boards up on my office wall with tons and tons and tons of slang from the 1920s that I researched and put up there so that as I was going along, I could go, okay, now what would, and I could look up and see kind of what would go there. And I didn't want to overdo it because you can overdo those things and just weigh people down with it. Yes. And so I really kept it to like two characters that really use the slang a lot, and kept the others. I tried to keep their tone in keeping with the 1920s without resorting to the slang with them.
That makes sense. Okay, so I know that you keep telling us that you're not going to write historical romance ever again. But you did a very good job with this one. And I'm just curious, in all of that research that you complained about having to do, what were some of the really interesting things that you discovered that you didn't know about that time or the area?
It really did open me up to the fact of how widespread different ideas were and attitudes. Around here, we have a horrible black mark in our history called Bloody Williamson. And I always thought it referred to one single event of the Heron Massacre where they took some scabs and marched them to the graveyard, killing them along the way. I mean, it was horrible. And reading the accounts of those, I was just like, wow, this is horrible. These people, you know, but it went back further than that. And it extended all the way up through Charlie Berger's time and all of that as well. So it wasn't that far removed from where this story is set. And so to get the idea that, okay, mistrust of different people was already there. You had racism already there. You had the people that were countering it. You had people that could hide in plain sight being being absolutely racist, but because of the other things they took a stand on, it's like people didn't see that. And it just to get that history of the area and see how somebody could, okay, how could this gangster have such a complicated, I mean, you talk to some people and he was almost like a Robin Hood, but he was also a cold-blooded killer. And how did that work together? How could they see both of these? And it really did open up to the complex issues with, well, with people. I mean, to be honest, it's no different than it is today.
What was the hardest thing you had to research? The most difficult?
Probably everything, it seemed like. I I'm thinking through, oh, well, this was, oh, but then I had to remember this. I mean, even up to when I was doing my final read through, I was looking at it going, oh, I used the word bathroom. Did they use the word bathroom? Oh, maybe I should go check that. And, it felt like every single
Yeah.
sentence had something that I had to research to find out, is the terminology correct? Was this even, did they have bagged potato chips? What kind of
Mm-hmm.
Christmas trees did they have at the time? Who had electricity? Who didn't?
Mm-hmm.
All of these things, even down to, I think Amy was the one who goes, did they have blue cars at that time? I don't know. They do now. I did go back. They did have blue cars back then, but you don't realize how much has changed in, okay, in 100 years, because I set the book in like 1926, so we're coming up on 100 years,
Mm-hmm.
and so much has changed.
So, how often did your research distract you from writing?
More often than it should have.
I bet. I bet.
At one point, when I was trying to set the mood and the tone, I just took a few days off writing, and I read, I had 2 or 3 books that were about the area at that time, that were about the gang activity in that time, the massacres, things like that. And I took time and just kind of binge read those, which I do not recommend, because that's a lot of really heavy stuff to cram into your head in like 2 days' time. But then I would also go back, and that helped me with certain aspects. But then, okay, it didn't talk about the cars, it didn't talk about the foods, it didn't talk about all that. So I would get sidetracked with those a little bit. I would go in to find, oh, what would she be wearing, or what would this, or what magazines were available and things like that. And sometimes it's hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
So you go down that rabbit hole and you're not trying to, but all of a sudden 2 hours of your day are sucked up trying to find out if Harper's Bazaar was spelled with 1 A or 2 A's at the time. So, or did Harrisburg have a, oh, I meant like together. Or did Harrisburg have a Woolworths? Or Woolworth? See, that was another thing. It's like, okay, is it an apostrophe S? Is it an S? Is it not any? There were a lot of little things that went into that.
It's hard for us contemporary gals.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we don't even have Woolworths anymore. So
No.
That's why I like fantasy. I just make it all up.
I'll try that next.
There you
Yeah.
go. You should. You totally should.
So Heather started us out. She's the very beginning of the family that we're following. Um, Brendan, he's the beginning of the Dunn family. And our books are going to span about 50 years between Heather's and Regina's. And then between Regina's and mine, Regina's will release in April and mine will release in August. And then I don't know the time span between mine and Erin's because hers is
Long
in
time.
the future. And I'm hoping it's more than 50 years because personally, I cannot handle that many changes in only 50 years. So each of our books is going to follow the family, and it's also going to include a chapel. And that's where our series title comes from, the Stained Glass Legacy. The stained glass window came from Ireland with
Mhm.
the Dunn family when they came over. And Uncle Patrick helped build this chapel and included the family. Well, it's not really the family window, but it is now because they brought
Yes.
it from Ireland. And so you have much to look forward to because you'll get to be in the 1970s in Regina's book, and then contemporary in mine, and then the far, far future in a land not so far away, but a very far future from now in Erin's for the rest of the year. All right. Anybody else have any last questions for Heather?
I just want to share some exciting
Yeah.
news that I got. So, my husband went to our local Barnes and Noble, and I don't know if y'all can see that, but there is my book in our local Barnes and Noble. Um,
So exciting.
if you're in the Carbondale area and you haven't got your copy and you want to get your copy, go in and support them there. Keep them getting local authors' works in. You may have to, I'm sorry, find it in the romance section. That's where they were looking to put it. I'm not sure why, but at least it's there. And I
Right.
got a picture of one of my books in the store, and not like a book that I bought and then carried in and took a picture, but like they actually had it there. So it's really exciting.
So exciting.
All right. So we hope that you guys have enjoyed learning more about Heather's book and all the other books that are coming out this year. And Heather, your book is already out, so make sure you go and get it and share it with any other historical romance readers that you think might like it. And don't forget to share it on social media, go and like our video, and share this with all your friends. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
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 Hi.